Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to your sleep story. I am Theresa Noye, your radical self-love coach. I work with high-achieving women who typically put themselves last to love themselves enough to put themselves first. You deserve to love, cherish, and honor yourself without guilt because your well-being matters. It gives me great joy to be the voice that guides you into a restful sleep tonight. You are so deeply loved. Your existence is the proof. Before we begin tonight's sleep story, let's start with a relaxation session. I'm going to count down from 10 to 1, and as I do, allow yourself to let go more and more. 10. Feel the support beneath you, the support of your bed, the floor, and the earth beneath. Imagine the warm sand of a beautiful beach, cradling you, holding you with the earth's gentle strength. Allow that certainty, that solidity, to enable you to release a little more, to sink into this moment a bit more. 9. You are safe. All is well. Allow my voice to be a point of safety for you. Allow my voice to be an anchor that keeps you in a safe space. Know that my voice will only ever bring you into safe places. Feel into your body now. Notice where you might be holding tension. Maybe your feet, your hands, your face, or your belly. Just release it all. Your body has worked hard for you today. It's time for it to rest. It deserves rest. 8. Today is done. Whatever has been, has been. Whatever will be, will be. All you have is now. So thoughts about the day that just was, or days that are to come, don't serve you right now. Allow that realization to enable you to settle into this moment more. 7. This is your moment. You have nowhere to be, nowhere to go. The only place you need to be is here, enjoying this cozy sleep story and the sound of my voice. You deserve it. 6. You deserve it. You deserve rest. You deserve sleep. You deserve to be here. Allow that fact to help you let go a little more. 5. Perhaps allow yourself to feel a little gratitude now. Gratitude for this moment. Gratitude for the ability to rest. Gratitude for the simple things. Your breath, the shelter you have tonight, the opportunity to switch off in a place of safety. 4. Embrace the coziness of this moment, the coziness of lying down in a safe space, moving towards sleep in the beautiful act of storytelling. 3. Begin to engage with your imagine now. Engage with your imagination. Picture a beach in the Caribbean, a secluded spot on the beautiful island of Barbados. isolated from the rest of the world, or another favorite spot that you may have. Allow yourself to engage. Bring that picture to mind and check in with your body again. Make sure you're not holding tension anywhere. Release and allow yourself to sink a little deeper to completely let go now as I tell you tonight's sleep story. The Crystal Cavern Bathhouse. She found the entrance just past the edge of the forest, where the moss grew thicker and the air began to hum with something quiet and sacred. The opening of the cavern was small, carved into a wall of stone, hidden behind a curtain of ivy. It was the kind of place you don't find unless you're meant to. And she was. A carved wooden door opened with a soft creak, revealing a gentle slope of stairs winding downward, lit by flickering lanterns set into the rock. The walls sparkled faintly, as if dusted with stars. She ran her fingers along the stone, cool and smooth like glass, warm in patches where hidden veins of crystal pulsed gently beneath the surface. There was no rush in her steps, no hurry in her breath, only a quiet curiosity that tugged her forward like a lullaby humming just beneath her thoughts. Each step she took brought her deeper, not just into the earth, but into herself. The deeper she went, the quieter it became, not silent, but hushed, a reverent kind of quiet, like the stillness of snowfall or the pause before dawn. The sound of dripping water began to echo softly through the corridor, a rhythm steady and slow like the heartbeat of the cave. It soothed her without words. There was nothing to do here but arrive. When the staircase widened, she stepped into a domed chamber carved entirely of amethyst and quartz. The walls glowed with a gentle lavender light, as if the crystals were lit from within by moonlight. They shimmered like dreams suspended in stone. And in the center of it all, a pool of warm mineral water, steaming gently, surrounded by smooth stone ledges and plush towels folded like clouds. She paused, not from doubt, but from awe. The space felt alive, not in a way that frightened, but in a way that welcomed. She could feel it in her skin, her bones, the spaces behind her eyes, a subtle pulse that matched her own. She stepped forward, her fingers grazing a tall column of rose quartz that sparked faintly as she passed. The air smelled faintly of salt, lavender, and something ancient, like the memory of rain held deep in the earth. There was no one else here, yet nothing felt empty. The space was full, with quiet, with warmth, with invitation. She unwrapped her robe slowly and stepped into the water, her skin sighing at the first touch. It was warm, silky, weightless, not just a bath, but a kind of belonging, the kind that doesn't ask questions or require permission. She sank in fully, the water rising to her collarbones, her hair floating around like dark seaweed in a quiet tide. A soft light shimmered beneath the surface, casting glints of silver across her shoulders. The sound of water droplets echoed gently overhead, each one a soft punctuation in the stillness. She closed her eyes and let herself be held. The warmth cradled her. The stillness rocked her. The glow wrapped around her like a lullaby without lyrics. Time lost its edge. Her thoughts loosened their grip. She didn't need answers here. She didn't even need the questions. All she needed was this: the breath in her chest, the heat in her limbs, the hush in her mind. The crystals in the walls seemed to pulse gently, in rhythm with her breath. It wasn't magic, exactly, but something more familiar than that, like being remembered, like being known. She drifted without moving, her body buoyed by warmth, her mind soft as mist. The cavern, the bath, the crystals, they didn't transform her. They simply let her rest into who she already was. And that was more than enough. Chapter 2, Light Beneath the Water. Her name was Alara, a name that sounded like water slipping over stone, soft, sure, and ancient in its own way. She had always carried it with quiet pride, though she rarely said it aloud unless asked. In her world above ground, names came after titles, after tasks, after timelines. But down here, in the still glow of the Crystal Cavern, her name seemed to rise like steam, gentle, necessary, and enough. The water cupped her shoulders like a hand made of heat and calm. She leaned back until her head floated, her ears just beneath the surface. The outer world dimmed instantly, replaced by the underwater hush. The soft echo of her own breath, the steady drip of mineral water, the occasional ripple like silk sliding across silk. Above her, the dome sparkled. The crystals caught the lantern light and fractured it into thousands of tiny glimmers. They looked like stars trapped in stone. No, more like the night sky, exhaled and left pieces of itself here, tucked gently into amethyst and quartz. Alara moved her arms slowly through the water, fingers outstretched like a dancer in slow motion. Her body obeyed the quiet now. No need to hurry, no need, no reason to reach. Every moment created rings on the surface, gentle circles expanding outward, touching the curved walls of the pool with a kiss. She watched the ripples, mesmerized. They reminded her of choices, how even the smallest ones travel, how even stillness could spread beauty. A soft vibration pulsed beneath her. She opened her eyes and noticed the glow beneath the water had deepened, shifting from pale silver to a tender golden hue. It seemed to rise from the floor of the pool itself, a quiet radiance that didn't ask for attention, but offered itself all the same. She slid upright, her breath deepening with the warmth. Her arms rested easily on the ledge behind her, her palms open. She felt like a flower, unclenching at last, not blooming for anyone, but softening for herself. All around her, the crystals seemed to shimmer with approval. The air smelled sweeter now, perhaps a hint of bergamot or something citrus carried gently by steam. She inhaled it fully, letting it curl inside her chest like comfort. A single droplet of water slipped from the ceiling above, falling with a delicate plink into the pool beside her. She smiled, not from joy exactly, but from ease, a soft kind of contentment that didn't need to be earned. Elira had come here with a question, not a heavy one, just a quiet wondering that had followed her for weeks. It had no sharp edges, no looming consequence, but it pulsed gently behind her eyes each morning. Is there more softness available to me if I stop protecting myself from it? She didn't think of the question now in words. She simply felt it, drifting beside her like steam, curling around her shoulders, mingling with the glow beneath the water. And as she breathed and drifted and rested into the warmth, something subtle began to shift. Not in her surroundings. They remained steady, serene, unchanged. The shift was inside, a loosening, a warming, an almost imperceptible yes. The light from below continued to glow gently, golden and kind. Elira dipped her hands beneath the surface and watched the shimmer move through her fingers. It felt like touching time without urgency. She didn't need to understand the light. She only needed to receive it. Her eyes closed again, her breath slow and even. Around her, the cavern held its glow. The crystals watched without judgment, and the water cradled her gently, as if it had known her long before her arrival. She was not waiting anymore. She was simply here. Chapter 3, The Chamber of Glow and Grace. Elira floated a while longer, the warmth wrapping her like velvet spun from sunlight. Her hair, weightless and dark, swayed around her face like seaweed in a slow tide. No effort, no holding, no bracing. Only the kind of ease that had no ambition but to continue. Eventually, she rose from the water unhurried. Droplets clung to her skin like small pearls, catching the soft light from the crystal walls. A thick towel waited for her on a smooth bench carved from shimmering blue calcite. She wrapped herself in it, and it felt like being hugged by the earth itself, dense, warm, steady. She noticed a gentle pathway now, winding away from the bath, lit by glowing stones embedded into the ground. Their colors shifted subtly, cool, aquamarine, to soft rose, to pale gold, as if sensing her steps. Alara followed it barefoot, her feet welcomed by stone, warmed from within, never cold, never harsh. The path opened into another chamber, rounder and wider than the last. It pulsed with a gentler kind of light, less sparkle, more glow. The walls here were lined with crystal formations in soft, soothing hues. Pale selenite, gentle moonstone, smoky quartz with edges worn smooth by time. The air was warmer here, heavier with steam, fragrant with something floral and faintly sweet, like gardenia left in sun. At the center of the room stood a low, round table carved from a single slab of rose quartz. It gleamed softly under the lanterns above, each flame swaying as though breathing. On the table sat a tray with a teapot and a single cup, ceramic hand-thrown glazed in iridescent cream. There were also 2 dried flower petals on the saucer, one lavender, one blush pink. Alara smiled. She didn't question who had prepared it. She simply sat on a cushion that seemed to know the shape of her body before she arrived. The steam curled upward as she poured the tea, pale and fragrant, releasing notes of chamomile, lemon balm, and something more mysterious. Perhaps a root, a seed, something deep. She held the cup with both hands and took a sip. The warmth spread instantly from her tongue down to her belly, across her ribs, out to her fingertips. Not a jolt, not a rush, just the quiet confirmation that she was here, still here, and she didn't need to go anywhere else. Her shoulders softened further, the last traces of tension slipping down her spine like rain sliding down a window. Even her jaw, so used to holding silence and strength at once, unclenched. There was a mirror across from her, oval framed in braided strands of golden metal. She met her own eyes there, not to critique, not to assess, just to see. And what she saw was simple. A woman returned to herself. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the flickering light, as if she was sitting in 2 places at once, here in the crystal chamber and in some inner room that had long been waiting for her. Alara sipped her tea slowly, reverently, like a sacred act. She didn't rush. She didn't multitask. She didn't plan the next step. She simply drank. And with each sip, she felt herself deepen into calm, into clarity, into the beauty of presence without performance. The petals on the saucer trembled slightly in the steam, The crystals around her glowed with a pulse she didn't try to understand. Her breath was slow, steady, and soft. She closed her eyes and let her back rest fully against the cushion. And for the first time in what felt like seasons, she felt no need to adjust, prove, or earn the moment she was in. It was enough to sit, to breathe, to be a woman held by glow and grace. Chapter 4, The Pool of Reflecting Light. After the final sip of tea, Alara lingered, hands cupping the empty vessel as if holding a small, quiet moon. The warmth from the cup faded slowly, like the last echo of a lullaby. But the peace it brought settled more deeply within her, rooted now, not fleeting. The lanterns along the walls flickered once, then dimmed slightly, casting a soft violet hue across the chamber. The air shifted, not cooler, not heavier, just inviting. Another path revealed itself, barely visible at first, marked by a faint glimmer running along the floor like a line of morning dew. Alara stood, stretching gently. Her body felt fluid, less separate from the space around her, like she was part of the cavern now, another curve in its design, another element in its sacred hush. She followed the shimmered path, her footsteps silent. The crystals lining the corridor began to change color as she passed. Hints of peach, silver, lavender, tones that didn't announce themselves, only whisper. Their light was not to brighten the way, but to soothe it. The corridor opened at last into a vast circular chamber. It took her breath, but not because of grandeur, because of stillness. A large pool rested in the center, still and smooth as a polished gem. The walls were carved with pure selenite, milky and luminous, glowing like moonstone beneath a veil of fog. The water here wasn't steaming like a mineral bath. It was cooler, quieter, and shimmered with an inner light, soft silvers, faint blues, a glint of rose when she moved. There was a reverence in the air, as if the space itself were listening. Alara stepped to the edge and knelt. The pool mirrored her perfectly, not just the lines of her face, but the softness of her expression. She had not noticed how her eyes had changed, how the weight behind them had shifted. They no longer looked tired, they looked rested, not because she had stopped, but because she had surrendered. The pool did not distort her image. It held it kindly, the way water holds a fallen leaf without changing its shape. She dipped her fingers into the surface. The water welcomed her, cool and smooth, sending ripples across her reflection. The light shimmered, then settled again, a reminder even disruption could return to stillness. Alara slipped into the pool, slowly and reverently. The water embraced her like a silk scarf brushed over bare skin. It was the kind of cool that didn't chill. It cleared. It awakened without alerting. As she submerged to her shoulders, she exhaled long and low. Here, her breath felt sacred. Her heartbeat felt like rhythm, and her presence felt like a quiet offering to herself. She moved with gentle floating motions, arms opening and closing like wings in slow flight. The water made no sound, only soft movement. Her skin shimmered in the glow as if it dusted with light. She lifted her head back only until her face remained above the surface. The ceiling domed and covered in tiny flecks of mica, glittered like a sky forgotten about by time. There was no beginning here, no ending, only the sensation of being. Her thoughts floated to the surface, not to be solved, but witnessed. What if peace wasn't something to earn, but something to enter? The question hovered, weightless. It didn't demand an answer, and so Alara let it drift. She remained in the pool until the shimmer of the water and the shimmer within her felt like the same thing, until her body no longer distinguished between being held and being whole. The light danced along the edges of the room, and she, bathed in reflection, in water, in wonder, simply rested, not waiting for clarity, already in it. Chapter 5. The Chamber of Breath and Bloom. Alara emerged from the reflecting pool with droplets shimmering across her skin like morning dew on flower petals. The water clung to her gently as if reluctant to let her go. A fresh towel, woven with soft fibers that felt like clouds pressed into fabric, was folded neatly beside a bench of polished moonstone. She wrapped herself in it, warmth meeting coolness in a tender dance. The corridor beyond the pool glowed with a rosy hue now. A new path had revealed itself like an inhale she hadn't yet taken. This was not a return the way she'd come. It was a continuation, an unfolding. As she followed the gentle curve, she noticed small petals scattered along the floor, as if the crystals themselves had blossomed in her wake. The corridor opened into a chamber unlike any she had seen, lush, alive, softly breathing. Here, plants grew from the crystal walls and floor, delicate vines and mosses with silver veined leaves and pale blossoms that looked painted by moonlight. Steam hovered just above the ground like a gauzy veil, and the scent of the space, fresh jasmine, rain-soaked fern, and something sweet and citrus made her chest expand. At the heart of the room stood a circular stone platform surrounded by pillows in muted rose, sage, and ivory. Above, long crystals hung from the ceiling like icicles of light, refracting a prism of colors that slowly shifted as if responding to breath. And breath was what this chamber called for. Alara stepped onto the platform and settled into one of the cushions. As soon as she did, something softened inside her. Not a dramatic shift, more like the loosening of a knot she hadn't realized she tied. The air was thick but nourishing, like inhaling warmth itself. She closed her eyes and placed one hand on her chest, the other on her belly. Her breath came slowly, naturally, as if the very rhythm of the space had taken her lungs into its care. Inhale, like opening a window. Exhale, like setting something down. There was no guide here, no voice, no instruction, just the sound of her own breathing, woven with the faint trickle of water from a small spring tucked into the wall, and the occasional flutter of petals dropping to the floor. As she continued to breathe, her awareness shifted, not into thought, but into sensation. The weight of her body supported by the earth, the warmth of the room wrapping around her limbs, the gentle thrum of peace humming beneath her ribs. She became aware of a light just beyond her closed eyes, a glow, not bright, but present. She opened her eyes slowly. Above her, one of the hanging crystals began to pulse with a soft light, like a heartbeat made visible. Then another and another. And soon the entire ceiling glowed in a rhythm that matched her own breath. She wasn't surprised, not anymore. Here, everything responded to being noticed. Her breath deepened, the chamber glowed. The plants leaned slightly in her direction as if they too were breathing with her. And in the quiet center of her awareness, a thought drifted up. Not a question this time, but a knowing. There is beauty in receiving your own breath. She let that truth fill her without fanfare. It didn't need to be examined. It didn't need to be held up to the light. It just needed to be felt. And she did. Fully, gratefully. Around her, petals fell like slow snow. The air shimmered, and she sat there breathing, not for performance, not for practice, but for presence. She had nothing to prove, nothing to improve, only this moment to live. And in this moment, she bloomed. Chapter 6, The Return Wrapped in Light. Alara stayed seated long after the petals had settled and the shimmering breath of the chamber stilled into silence. Not because she needed more, but because she finally knew she didn't. This peace, this softness, it wasn't fleeting. It was part of her now. A memory her body would carry home like light tucked into a pocket. She rose slowly from the cushion. The towel still draped around her shoulders felt lighter somehow, as if it too had softened in the presence of her breath. The crystals above pulsed one last time, like a quiet farewell. Not a goodbye, just a blessing for the journey ahead. A soft golden glow traced a new path at the edge of the chamber. Alara followed it without question, her bare feet pressing into warm stone as the light guided her. The plants receded behind her, their leaves swaying gently in a rhythm that felt like gratitude. The corridor grew narrower, then opened into a final smaller room. Unlike the others, it didn't shimmer or shine. It glowed with a gentle, matte warmth, like the inside of a seashell or the color of candlelight filtered through linen. There, in the center, was a dressing table carved from sunstone, a long robe laid out carefully atop it. The fabric looked impossibly soft, woven from something that glimmered faintly like moonbeams stitched with rose petals. Alara lifted it and let it fall over her shoulders, the material hugging her as though it had been waiting just for her shape. As she moved toward the exit, she passed a tall standing mirror, not to judge, not to fix, simply to witness. She paused. Her reflection was not extraordinary. It was not dazzling. It was simply hers and fully at ease. Eyes soft, shoulders open, mouth curved in a gentle, quiet smile. There was no trace of hurry, no residue of proving. What looked back at her was not the high achiever, the woman who carried so much with grace and grit. What looked back was the one who existed beneath all of it. Still powerful, still brilliant, but wrapped now in something different. Not effort, essence. She stepped through the final archway where soft crystal beads hung from above, clicking gently like wind chimes as she passed through. The corridor sloped upward, slowly leading her back to the surface. But there was no descent from here, only rising. Each step felt like a gentle return, not to what was, but to what could now be. The final staircase led her to a circular opening where morning light streamed in like gold poured from heaven. She stepped into it and paused, letting the warmth touch her face, her hands, her heart. The forest was quieter than before, as if it, too, had been holding its breath while she rested. A breeze drifted through the trees, carrying the scent of earth, crystal, and something that could only be described as peace. Alara stood at the edge of the path, her robe catching the breeze like a small sail, her breath steady. She had not been changed, she had been remembered. She had not escaped life, she had re-entered herself. And now, as the wind played in her hair and sunlight bathed her skin, the world felt no less demanding, but she felt different within it. Calmer, clearer, capable of choosing softness even amid the sharp edges of the day. The bathhouse remained behind her, carved in crystal, hidden in mist, humming gently beneath the earth, waiting, not to be visited like a prize, but to be returned to as a practice. Alara took one final breath of the morning and stepped forward, not away from the magic, but carrying it with her. Every step she took was a reminder. She could return to stillness. She could return to herself. She always could. And as the forest closed gently behind her, the light around her did not fade. It followed.